may have no issues with Patty Garcia, but this is one of the most undemocratic things that I have seen.
Yeah, and how uninspiring to anyone who wants to run for office. Like, haven't you thought of running? Like, how does that make you feel as someone who potentially could be running for that seat as a young activist in Chicago?
I live 1 block outside of that district, and if you Google my name, the first thing that comes up is an article from CNN saying that I was going to run for office this year or next year. That's not happening at this point, but I talked about my aspirations for wanting to run for office, and that dream has not gone away. I'm actively looking into seats I could run for that I think I would represent well within the community that I live in. And Chewy's seat was one of those that I thought that I don't know if I necessarily win, but I could get my name out there and I could have really, really represented people well. And it's just disheartening to see that this is how this machine progressive generation of leaders is treating young people.
Welcome back to another episode of Concepts of a Pod, and as we are recording this, the House is gearing up to vote on the release of the Epstein files at long last, after Donald Trump made a sudden about-face and all of a sudden supports releasing them. What's going on there?
Hubba bubba, what's happening? I think it's going to take years before we are able to just rake through all of the Epstein files. Because do we know how many actual pages there are of it?
We don't even know what it consists of. It's just,
That's
I
so gross.
think everyone's expecting some list, and the Republicans are going to say, see, there's not a list, and who knows if we're even going to get all the files. They've had plenty of time to scrub now, and you think they're all in the shower at Mar-a-Lago?
Taking a golden shower? I don't know. We'll see. But I think I think they're going to fight as hard as they can to make sure that that guest book essentially is going to be the last thing to be released. But most of the files, I think people are forgetting, they're just email chains. And
Yeah.
email chains are difficult to read, and they take a moment to read through all of them. So it's going to take a moment before we know exactly everything that's in there. But as we can see, there's already
It's going to take
a lot in there.
decades.
And we've got some love triangles and blowing in the wind happening there, but we'll see what happens from there.
Yeah, no, it's going to take decades for all of this to come out. And I mean, even before the vote, there have already been some leaks that the House Oversight Democrats have been releasing of files that have come directly from the Epstein estate to the House committee now that they've been subpoenaing those files. And there are actually 3 emails that have been making the rounds on Twitter that we want to discuss here on Concepts of a Pod that have been fueling quite a bit of a rumor mill over the weekend and over last week. First one from Jeffrey Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell. The dog that hasn't barked is Trump. The victim spent hours at my house with him.
I don't think there's a whole lot else to say about that. It says it all right there. We already knew that all of this was true. It's kind of funny that everyone wants to hear commentators and strategists' opinions on the Epstein files, but the problem is we already knew all this stuff was in here, and this is just confirmation from the source. So it's kind of hard to talk about the things we've already been talking about for decades.
Yeah, I seem to remember learning in history class that primary sources were better than anything else for addressing what actually happened. And if you want to know why that is, just look to the next email we have to show you, which, fascinatingly enough, was sent from Jeffrey Epstein to Michael Wolff. Do you know who Michael Wolff is? You remember the author of Fire and Fury?
Yep.
Who got this email because Jeffrey Epstein was one of his many confidential sources.
Yep.
Unbelievable. But he said, of course he knew about the girls. He asked Ghislaine to stop. Jeffrey Epstein told Michael Wolff back during Trump's first term that Trump knew about the girls. This is a reporter who knows this on background and isn't doing anything with it. So
Also, I wanted to make a very important note here. I saw someone online saying, oh, I bet Democrats are going to defend all other Democrats they see in the Epstein files.
No.
Absolutely not. I want to make that very clear. Let's not forget about Al Franken and the way that we forced him to resign. Let's not forget about Andrew Cuomo and how we forced him to resign.
And then he tried to run again, and then we kicked his ass twice.
Exactly. One of the main differences here between Democrats and Republicans is that we're well aware that we know that there's Democrats in the Epstein files. We know that both Hillary and Bill Clinton are in the Epstein files.
Although there was an email from Epstein about how he never visited the island in the Epstein files.
That's true. It's true. But we know their names were in there, and they're probably, and here's the thing, we know that they were friends. We know that their Clintons are going to show up multiple other times as we dig through things with between, names and emails and stuff, and we're going to hold them accountable. We're going to hold accountable any other Democrats we see in there. Same with celebrities. There's a lot of celebrities that I think are I think that they're going to be pretty damn nervous in the next few years as we start to dig through the Epstein files. We're not letting any of that go.
Absolutely
I want to make that
not.
super clear. We are holding people accountable. That is what it's about, right versus wrong. And if you were talking to Jeffrey Epstein or were well aware of what was happening or visited his island and were well aware of what was happening, you were complicit in this.
Oh yeah, I want to know. I want to know why Jeffrey Epstein was texting or emailing questions to a non-voting delegate in Congress to ask in hearings. I want to know.
I saw that. That was, that made my stomach turn just because I didn't realize that you were allowed to have your phones during hearings and stuff. And I feel like,
they're all getting
I don't know,
stuff from
I
their
feel
staff.
like that's kind of odd because then, things like that can happen. But anyways, let's get back on track to what we were talking about because we could go on about this forever and ever.
Yeah, and we will get to the way that political machines have covered up for a vast number of powerful people that we are just starting to find out, and many that we still don't know. But one more email that we saw in the Epstein files that I think might be more of a curiosity for the internet than anything else, and has been a lot of fun, but might fall into the category of the "is Trump dead" kind of stuff. Jeffrey Epstein's brother Mark sent him an email saying, ask him if Putin has the photos of Trump blowing Bubba. I don't know what to make of that.
I just think it's so funny that, do we all remember when the text between Cal Cunningham and his mistress came out and they were so cringy? This is the same level of cringe back and forth. And I just think it's so funny that in this case, because this specific email has nothing to do with underage women, which some people think is okay because they weren't 8 years old.
I don't care
Fuck
if
you,
Trump
Megyn
blew
Kelly.
somebody.
I want to say that first of all.
Yeah.
Fuck you, Megyn Kelly.
I don't care if Trump blew somebody, though, to be honest. I'm all for gay rights. And
exactly.
We have our first queer president, maybe.
Well, and also he pardoned America's first drag queen. So, we love, this is a really, really supportive administration of gay rights.
Anyways. And before anyone says maybe this isn't true, I will just point out that the factual debate right now is over whether or not Bubba is Bill Clinton. That's all anyone's arguing about.
There's two people that Bubba could be, but as we've seen, there's someone. It's Bubba Watson is the other person, right? I think that's their name. It's someone that was, I believe, one of Jeffrey. Yeah, but the thing is, something that we know is that Bill Clinton had a nickname with Jeffrey Epstein, and his nickname was Bubba. So it's
a lot of people called him that, though.
A lot of people.
Mark actually came out and said that it is not Bill Clinton. But I find it interesting that the only fact-check clarification on that email was that it's not Bill Clinton, which means Vladimir Putin has a photo of Trump blowing someone, which somehow might be even crazier than the golden shower tape. And we're not even talking about that, but...
I also funny enough, I just started watching Hunting Wives. Have you seen Hunting Wives?
No, I have not.
Okay, so it's based off of a novel. I'm a little late to the game on it. It came out, I think, sometime earlier this year or last year. For those of you who don't know Hunting Wives is, I'm going to explain it real quickly. Those of you who do know, I think you'll see exactly where I'm going with this. So, Hunting Wives is about this liberal couple who moves from Cambridge, Boston, where Harvard is, to the middle of nowhere, Texas. And
Hmm.
this guy starts working for this super Republican rich guy in Texas. And all of the rich Republican wives take a liking to this little liberal girl because she doesn't know what's going on. And let me just say in the show, I won't spoil anything, but all of these wives do all the things we're talking about. They do all of this shit with one another. And they
Ooh,
do all this shit with each other's friends, husbands, girlfriends of age, children, like who are 18 years old in college. All of this stuff
interesting.
happens. And I believe that Hunting Wives, I don't know if the novel ever says it, but I believe parts of this are based off of real things that have happened or stories that people have heard. So,
Sounds like a place you'd find Marjorie Taylor Greene's CrossFit gym, to be honest.
probably.
Didn't she cheat on
Probably.
her husband with someone in her CrossFit gym or something like that?
I'm pretty sure that's what it
Yeah.
was. No,
I
like
don't.
literally, that's exactly what it's like.
Yeah, and that actually brings to mind a fascinating development as part of this whole Epstein plot, which is the seeming, I don't know if you want to call it reformation, coming to Jesus, whatever you want to call it, of Marjorie Taylor Greene, who has all of a sudden been calling out the Republicans for taking away health care, demanding to see the true Epstein files, and going on a lot of liberal news channels like CNN. I don't think I've seen her on MS or MS Now yet, but
No, but she got on national TV and apologized for her toxic politics and her
crazy.
part in it. And here's the thing, too. I still don't trust her.
No.
I don't think people should listen to her, but it's very interesting to see how calm she is when she's talking about this. And she seems really sincere in her, I don't want to say her new views, because I don't think a lot of her views have necessarily changed, but I think her heart has changed. And I think she realized that she had been drinking the Kool-Aid for too
Yeah.
long.
Though it's more than that, it's her insight and her instinct into the MAGA base. And she sees a fracture and she sees a post-Trump future she can carve. But beyond that, I don't know. Did you see what AOC had to say about all of this?
No, I haven't yet. What did she
Oh,
say?
it was fascinating. Here, I'll show you.
Here's some tea for you. MTG, people are like, oh my God, she's saying all of these things. Like, what's gotten into her lately? Oh, like she's bucking against Trump. She's bucking against the administration. Marjorie Taylor Greene wanted to run for Senate in Georgia. She wanted to be the Republican nominee for Senate. So she was gearing up for that statewide race, and Trump told her no. And the White House and Trump land shut down Marjorie Taylor Greene's personal ambitions to run for Senate. And she has been on a revenge tour ever since.
Yeah, sound about right?
Interesting.
Yeah. That being said, I think there is actually one deeper element to it, though, that I think AOC's mostly right, but there's an added element to the fact that Marjorie Taylor Greene, unlike most of these members of Congress on the Republican side, is not a career politician. She got into this on the MAGA hype train through QAnon, like many of their followers. And what I think really happened is she experienced between living in the first Trump term, the Biden term, and now the second Trump term, she's discovering what's a theory and what really is the behind the scenes machinery that makes our politics run. And I don't think she likes what she's seeing.
No, something that I don't know if I've mentioned it in previous episodes before, but you and I have talked very heavily and deeply about this, Jordan, is that if it is your first term, you're still learning exactly how everything works. And it takes a couple of terms for you to see exactly what's going on the back end. Now, that's a whole separate issue for how our whole political system works, and it's kind of broken right now.
Yeah.
There's not supposed to be career politicians. And because we have career politicians who have molded things to be exactly the way that they want, and which is why they're not giving up their seats, even though they're too old. There's a few more people who need to do that.
By the way, unless they want to give them up to their chief of staff on the last day of filing.
My God, don't get me started on that yet. We'll
we do
get
need
there.
No, we do need to talk about
I know,
that.
we'll get to Chuy Garcia, but now the government is supposed to be ever evolving and changing with how the times change. And we are stuck in I don't even know what time period, what decade you want to say in, but the average age of Congress, I believe, is 69 years old. A big chunk of Congress, which is both the House and the Senate, they've been alive since Jim Crow eras were still in place. And Marjorie Taylor Greene is now discovering, and as crazy as she is, and all the crazy shit she believes in, she's very moldable. And that's something we've seen from the beginning. And she's starting to be molded into, oh, this isn't how I thought things were going to go. And I mentioned this on the last episode was I don't understand how a lot of these MAGA Republicans do not have a heart. And I think Marjorie Taylor Greene is showing that she is human and she has some empathy and she does have a heart, and she's starting to realize that maybe her heart has been in the wrong place. And I think that's the important thing to take away from all of this.
As long as we don't set aside the anti-Semitism, because
correct.
she did not drop that, by the way.
Oh.
Amid all of her sanity interviews, she did say something about how Israel was behind all this Epstein shit that's trying to divide America. And say what you will about Israel, because my personal opinion in that situation is everybody is wrong at this point. But you cannot start blaming the Jews for everything that goes wrong in the world. And give it 5 years between that and a Nazi tattoo, I worry we're going to end up with a green Plattner ticket on the American Nazi Party.
Ew. But all of this to say, with her possible change of heart or whatever, we can't ignore all of the batshit things she said and that she still stands for. But we can see in real time, she's starting to realize that there's things that are wrong. And this is, I think, the first time we've ever seen Marjorie Taylor Greene be on somewhat of the correct side of history on an issue, because she realizes there's some things wrong. And I think it's awful that anytime we see some people be on the right side of history is when it comes to children specifically being molested, not children being killed in school. Which she has no problems with guns in school still. But we're starting to see a few people have a change of heart in this regard. And I'm hopeful to see that there's more people and more Republicans like Thomas Massie. He has surprised me quite a bit. He has broken with Trump and MAGA on a lot more things than I ever thought he would have, because Massie he's pretty far MAGA, but he's broken with Trump and Republicans on a lot of different votes and things.
Oh, yeah. I think what's happening is whether it's MAGA or the Democratic Party, like we said, people are just getting tired of machine politics, because you've got incumbents who stick around forever, who are, I mean, some of them at this point should be in a memory care unit if you look at Eleanor Holmes Norton. But what you really have is an endless revolving door of staffers to lobbyists who are really running these offices. And I think some of these more independent-minded members who got elected in the social media era are starting to see that and starting to distance themselves from it. And I think that's happening both on the Republican side and on the Democratic side. And I think now's a good time to go back to our little snide comment about Chuy Garcia and the drama unfolding in the House right now, as one more moderate Democratic member actually had the guts to stand up and introduce a resolution saying, hey, this isn't okay, this is undemocratic. And tell me why on earth the Progressive Caucus is now trying to retaliate against her. Did you see that?
I did not see that.
Yeah, they're going after Mary Gluesenkamp Perez. It's like unbelievable.
They could go after her for a lot of other things, but that's a weird thing to go after her for. But yeah, if you watched our last episode, we talked a little bit about Chuy Garcia. And first off, want to say that our hearts go out to him and his family. He's dealing with a lot right now. His daughter was killed and his wife has a lot of health issues and her health is declining. And that is why he chose to not seek re-election. I'm not mad that he is deciding to leave. I'm mad in the way in which he did it. And his staff and his team doubled down on the way he decided to do it. And I explained this last time, but I'll go through it again real quick if you're watching for the first time. So in Illinois, Chuy represents, his district is Illinois he's in Congress. It represents mostly in Chicago, but a little bit outside of it. When you run for any level of office in the state of Illinois, you have to collect petition signatures. You have to get a certain amount of signatures from people who live in your district to get on the ballot. And you can only collect signatures between certain days. It's usually, you've got like a 2.5 to 3 month period. And then you can file your signatures at the Board of Elections, either in the city or the state, within a certain period of time. And then after that, you have a certain period of time that you can challenge any opponent's petition signatures to try and kick them off the ballot. Chuy Garcia collected signatures for himself to be on the ballot to seek re-election in 2026. And he also had his chief of staff, Patty Garcia, collect petition signatures.
Wait, are they related?
I have no
No,
clue if
right?
they're
I
related. I
don't
don't
think
believe
they
so.
are. I don't think they are,
I
but
don't believe they're related, but he had her collect signatures as well. And nobody really knew because no one was going to run against Chewy. He represents his district very well. He's loved in the community. But on the very last day that you were allowed to file your signatures, so this was beyond being able to actually collect them. You were no longer really able to collect them at this point. You weren't going to be able to get the thousands of signatures that you needed to run for this position in a day. At the last minute, literally at the last hour, he decided that he was going to pull his nomination petitions, and Patty turned hers in. And no other Democrat is running for this position because no one collected signatures because they weren't going to run against Chewy because they respected him. And so
believable.
now this seat, which is heavily blue, it's a Republican is not going to win this seat. This seat was given to Patty Garcia. Here's the thing. I may have no issues with Patty Garcia. I bet she's a wonderful person. I bet I'm going to agree with a lot of her policies. But this is one of the most undemocratic things that I have seen.
Unbelievably so. It's
It's
insane.
unfair, and I'm going to just keep using the word undemocratic. I think that is the best way to describe the situation because that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, and how uninspiring to anyone who wants to run for office. Like, haven't you thought of running? Like, how does that make you feel as someone who potentially could be running for that seat as a young activist in Chicago?
I live one block outside of that district, and I have been. If you Google my name, the first thing that comes up is an article from CNN saying that I was going to run for office this year or next year. That's not happening at this point, but I talked about my aspirations for wanting to run for office, especially after seeing what happened January 6th.
Yeah.
Just to go back for a moment to that time, I had been helping virtually because COVID was still going on with getting John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock across the finish line in their runoff elections. And I
Yeah.
was doing so through Zoom, and we were having our celebration party, watching as votes were coming in and celebrating the fact that we had just won 2 federal Senate seats in the state of Georgia. I went to the bathroom for 30 seconds. I came back, and all of a sudden, there were people storming and rioting at the Capitol. And I made
Yeah.
a tweet talking about how this inspired me that we really do need new leadership. And a reporter reached out to me. She has a lot of reporting on young people who want to be involved in politics. Her name is Rachel Jafanza. I highly recommend you go follow her. She did an article on me and a few other people, and that dream has not gone away. I'm actively looking into seats I could run for that I think I would represent well within the community that I live in. And Chewy's seat was one of those that I thought that I don't know if I necessarily win, but I could get my name out there and I could have really, really represented people well. And I could have gotten their take on everything that's happening. Chewy's been representing this seat for like decades. He's been here for a very long time. And it's just disheartening to see that this is how this machine progressive generation of leaders is treating young people.
Yeah, the fact that the Progressive Caucus is so heavily not just defending him, but going after anyone who calls this out, like, how freaking progressive is that? And that shows that even within the progressive movement, there's a machine too. And
something in the progressive movement that I don't think anyone's willing to talk about, but here's Shayna saying the quiet part out loud again. The progressive movement is incredibly possessive of things, and they're incredibly possessive of their people, of their messaging, and the fact that they're their own and they want to stay in this tight-knit, like, special group almost. But the point was to get more people in their circle. And I would love to call myself a progressive, but because of I'm going to call them my identity points, I'm not accepted in a lot of progressive circles or in a lot of leftist circles because
there's
so
difference
possessive of
between
things.
leftist and progressive too.
There's a difference between the intersectionality is something that the progressive and leftist circles are supposed to be. That's supposed to be their thing, and they're not. They're very possessive of what they want to claim as being intersectional. And a lot of times people who are part of different religious groups, they don't allow them in there. I will let you decide from there what groups you think those are, because this is a conversation that we don't have time to get into today,
No.
and I don't think we have all of the right people up here to speak about it, but they're incredibly possessive of all of this, and they're not truly intersectional, but that's a conversation for another time.
Not only that, a lot of progressives aren't truly liberal. And if you look at the definition of what liberal means, it means being accepting of open discourse and disagreement to build a better society. And that's kind of missing from the progressive movement right now, which is why Shayna and I got together to build New Digital Now in the first place. And thanks to Democratic supporters like you, we've built something truly incredible. We have a focus group of Democratic supporters with over 50,000 comments from over 30,000 people. And many of those people disagree on the issues facing our party. And that's a good thing. But one thing that a lot of people did agree on, and I think one supporter comment summed this up particularly well in regards to the emails and texts that Democrats send. I keep getting asks for No Kings Act and Stopping Citizens United. Both are needed, but without a majority in either house, we can't get them passed. So what are the funds being used for?
That is a really, really great question. And one of the things we've told you from the beginning that we care about is transparency. So we're going to tell you where all of your money's going right now.
Yeah, no, and we actually just finished putting together a report on our impact in 2024 and 2025 since we started. If you want to see the full thing, I will put the link on screen right here. But the top lines are, alongside this focus group that has taught us so much about how Democratic supporters really feel, we have built technology that has allowed us to raise over $25,000 directly for candidates, organizations on the ground, and state parties. And that is an early pilot of a piece of technology that we plan to expand massively. So hopefully by 2028, we'll be raising hundreds of thousands, if not millions, for these candidates. And that is all through this podcast too, where we speak directly to donors like you and bring you conversations with our leaders and our activists that you can directly engage in. Beyond that, we are also working with partner organizations and campaigns on the ground to organize protests in real time. I know, Shayna, you just did something absolutely incredible in Chicago around the Broadview 6 indictment. You guys brought, a couple hundred people out with some local organizations, and even some of the candidates who were indicted's opponents turned out.
That is correct. If you don't know who the Broadview 6 are, they are 6 people in the Chicagoland area who are candidates and activists and elected officials who are being indicted by the federal government for using their First Amendment rights to peacefully protest. And on the date of their arraignment, we decided to hold a protest in support of all of these people. And this idea, it actually came from one of Kat Abu Ghazaleh's opponents. She's one of the people being indicted by the federal government. She's running for Jan Schakowsky's seat in Illinois 9. You might have heard her name before. One of her opponents reached out to us and asked, hey, we would love help organizing something to support Kat. And there were a couple of other candidates whose opponents came out to support these people. It was really cool to see the community to come together, and it was really cool to see this on-the-ground stuff happen. We haven't gotten to do a whole lot of that yet, but this was so successful. And actually, let me find it real quick. I want to show you guys what you were able to help us bring to the protest as well.
Yeah.
So you guys helped us design and fund posters. So this is the first side, and all of these are comments from all of you that we took. We looked through your tens of thousands of comments to put comments on here. And the back side, which is my favorite part, they're your tips for protesting. So if you look up the protest, you will actually see photos online of people holding up this sign telling you exactly what our intentions were with protesting. But the other thing that I thought was even cooler were we made Know Your Rights cards, and there's information on the front and the back. All the information was sourced from the ACLU. We gave out half of these. We printed 500 of them. We gave out 250 of them, and some local businesses, news stations, and candidates took piles of these to put in their offices to hand out to people when they came in. So because of you, we were able to spread a lot of this information. And I truly, I can't thank all of you enough for help for that. I'm someone who's been in field for my whole career, and field sometimes gets forgotten about and field sometimes gets shat on, for lack of a better term, but I think it's a decent term. And you guys were able to make this happen.
That's no longer true, and that will be thanks to us, because we will make sure that the power of technology is infused into the future of field organizing so that we can take this pilot program that we've demonstrated now in Chicago, and through our partner organizations replicate it across the country in 2026 and 2028 and really amplify the power of this movement. And it's all thanks to you. But for more on that, I'm actually going to bring in our friend Liam from the Blue Anchor Project, which is the first of our many to come on the ground partner organizations based up in New England that is helping spread our organizing model to the community at large. Hey, Liam, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be able to join you guys any day, anytime.
Oh, yeah, no, we are always excited when we get to work with you guys. It's been great on the No Kings movement, getting some of our supportive comments to the national organizers, and we always love working with you. But I actually wanted to ask you, because Shayna and I have been talking a bit about machine politics, and I know you guys work beyond Maine, but you are living in Maine, and as a Maine constituent, I want to ask you about some of what's going on in the Maine Senate race, because we've been discussing the
Lordy.
Yeah.
It's a shit show is
Yeah.
the best way to describe what's happening up here. It makes the Massachusetts primary race against Ed Markey a piece of cake comparatively. And that's an insane race because Ayanna Pressley is rumored to be joining that primary against Markey along
Ooh,
with
interesting.
Moulton. Oh, yeah.
That's
So
a wild primary. Presley versus Markey?
and Moulton. It's going to be fascinating.
I wonder if Moulton's going to come out ahead in that because Presley and Markey divide the progressives.
We shall see. It's going to be very interesting. From our conversations on the ground, it's neck and neck right now.
Wow.
Yeah, compared to the Massachusetts one, Maine is somehow like you're in a hot air balloon and then somebody decides, let's pop a hole and set that balloon on fire, and now you're cascading down very quickly. That's the Maine Senate primary for the Democrats right now.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Why are we now what are we now stuck between a 77-year-old former governor who's being pushed by the establishment for God knows why and an oyster farmer with a Nazi tattoo?
Yeah. Because the guy that we endorsed, Jordan Wood, I honestly have no idea why he dropped out and decided to run for CD2.
Yeah,
I mean, I will take credit for the fact that we were part of the reason Jared Golden is no longer going to be running. Do we agree at all what the circumstances were around that? My God, no. Nobody should have to go through what he had to deal with. I'm not sad that he's leaving, though. And it's just from my own decade or so, more than a decade or so of experience in Maine politics, it's the dumbest decision I've ever witnessed, ever.
Yeah, what is Wood doing? Because you said you didn't know about it.
I didn't know about it at all until it happened. I mean, you're the one that sent me the link telling me. That's how I found out. And it honestly baffles my mind. He was becoming the front runner. If you waited another month, he would have been the front runner. So that's why it's very confusing. I know, ironically, the one person that I never would have expected would have had the potential to become the frontrunner was actually going to.
Katie Porter's chief of staff?
Yes, he did a lot. So he's like a DC insider that knows stuff, but the party hates him, which is why we liked him. That's kind of our whole thing. But then he just wanted to run for the second CD. And the guy lives over here in the first congressional with me. And then now he's moving over to Lewiston to live in the second congressional. It's very bizarre.
Did somebody get to him?
I don't know, but it wouldn't surprise me. From my sources, I think so.
I saw a picture of him palling around with Janet Mills a couple weeks ago, right?
But yeah, it's a shit show.
Yeah.
And then we deal with Plattner. And it's interesting from my conversations with random folks. I mean, even at the doctor's office, the nurses there are all like, yeah, we were going to support Wood, but now I guess we have to support Plattner. That's a quote, by the way.
That's fascinating because
yeah,
it has almost felt like there has been a concerted effort in DC not to skewer Wood, but to make sure he gets no coverage whatsoever. It's like people are going out of their way to ignore him, which is a fascinating dynamic.
It's very strange. What's fascinating about this race, but also interesting, is that Fight Agency is running Plattner, and they're the same people that are running Mom Donnie.
Oh,
please tell me I pronounced that correctly.
Yes.
Thank God. To anybody who's just seeing this, I have no idea how this edit's going to happen, but that was the 5th try. Anywho, it's fascinating because they're complete polar opposites. Like, Mom Donnie is somebody that you can actually trust, but then you have Plattner, who you can't really trust. It's very bizarre.
Yeah.
I didn't know who Plattner was.
It all goes
Nobody
back
knew.
to, though, and Shanna and I were discussing before you hopped on, the separate kind of political machine that exists within the progressive movement that appears very grassroots because Fight Agency does such a good job astroturfing campaigns with grassroots fundraising, which is, as we know all too well, anyone with a computer can buy a list of Democratic names and get a grassroots fundraising program in a day going with the right message. But it really, I mean, the Plattner campaign didn't even answer your endorsement questionnaire, right?
No, he didn't. And what's fascinating is I just realized one of the numerous sticky notes I have on here from one of my sources in DC is that Katz, who's one of the founders of Fight Agency, looked for multiple candidates. He was the third one. They couldn't even get the first two.
Sounds like you guys need a better bench in Maine, but
we're stuck with what we have unless there's somehow a miracle. It's going to be very bizarre to see what happens in this race. Thankfully, we are not Maine-based, so we have the ability to kind of work outside, and I can not have to deal with that shit show all the time in my head.
It is an important Senate race, though, that we should be able to win.
It is. We definitely need to pay attention to it, but don't give yourself a migraine over it. It's going to do its thing. Mills and Plattner are going to be duking it out. It's just who they are. They are two insanely stubborn human beings who think that their shit don't stink, and they are going to have at it. And we're going to keep continuing what we do best is amplify voters' concerns, and our supporters that have told us have said that they are evenly split. They don't really know what to think. And actually, that focus group that New Digital Now Blue Anchor Project just did.
Here are the results, by the way.
Yeah, here are the results. It's fascinating to see that there is such a close even between Plattner and Mills. I did not expect it to be that close. And there's about 3 other polls that have gone on in Maine, and those polls keep flip-flopping. So it's a dead heat right now. And when you tie in Susan Collins to all of this, it makes it even more of a dead heat, which is interesting to have Janet Mills be doing so well because nobody really wants her. It's more like they're starting to realize, oh, well, I guess we just have to settle with her, which shouldn't be the case in a primary.
Yeah, something that I think too, from just a general electoral politics standpoint, people forget are the Northwest and the Northeast. They're very independent minded. I'm thinking about New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, Alaska, Montana, Washington, and Oregon as a whole. They're very independent minded versus being Democrat and Republican. I know that's one of the reasons that Susan Collins has been around for so long. And so you get a lot of really interesting options when you are looking at some of those more independent minded states when you are in the Northeast and the Northwest corners of the country. You're just going to get a lot more interesting options. It's kind of like, the further away you go from the cities, the closer you go to the forest, the coast, you get lots of different and very interesting personalities. So this is going to be an incredibly interesting race. And thank you for giving us your, I guess
welcome.
The 411 because you're the one who's in the middle of it.
And like one other thing that we're finding very interesting kind of within New England right now is how the independents really are starting to kind of really shape it, as you mentioned. It's really interesting. Like, in New England, it's like 30, 30, 30.
Absolutely. And that is why it is so important for us as a Democratic Party to remember that the future of the party is not left, it's not center, it's local. It's that we need to be a big tent organization that is able to, in real time, take into consideration the opinions of people all across this great country and remind ourselves that united we stand, divided we fall, and that democracy doesn't have to lead to division. And we will continue using all of your comments to drive that point home. We will continue spreading the word about what you have to say about everything going on, and we could not do any of it without all of your support. So thank you all so much. We can't wait to show you what's next. If you want to learn more about what we've done with all of your money, go on the website to see our impact report. And Liam, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, and just to do my classic plug for Blue Anchor, on our website, we have our Focus Impact right on our homepage, and we actually just released our new Democracy Hub. So it's an entire hub. We enhanced what we already were having. So beforehand, you could contact us You were able to submit your questions and concerns to representatives. You were able to contact your reps directly. And what we've now added on is we've added voting rights. We've added a reporting tool. So you're now able to actively report any inaction or negligence, any elected official across the country.
Oh,
Feel free to
incredible.
let us know. Oh, yeah. And there's various other things. Go check it out. And thank you guys so much for having me on.
Yeah, of course. And again, because we can't say it enough, thank you to all of you.
Yes.
Famous line here, democracy dies in darkness, but all of you are helping us build the light to keep things going. So thank you again, and we'll see you next time.
And check out Blue Anchor Project and the new Digital Now Impact Report in the meantime, and we will see you next time.